After receiving a message from her friend Zhu Ning, Shen Yuelyang finally understood why her right eye had been twitching nonstop all day. Lu Xingchen was cheating. The photo Zhu Ning sent showed Lu Xingchen sitting across from a fair-skinned, beautiful girl. There was a rare, almost imperceptible smile on his face. They looked like they were having a delightful conversation. Shen Yuelyang couldn't stay calm anymore. She had been working overtime, struggling hard, while he was out enjoying a meal with someone else. Cheating so openly, no less, right at the restaurant below her workplace where Zhu Ning worked. This was intolerable. Fuming, Shen Yuelyang slammed her hands on the table, storming into her boss's office to ask for time off. With her fiery personality, when the boss said no, she outright quit. She had been working nonstop for 2 weeks, and she'd been dying for an excuse to quit anyway. When she arrived at the restaurant, Shen Yuelyang spotted Lu Xingchen right away. He had already reverted to his usual cold, indifferent face, looking every bit the aloof gentleman who kept everyone at arm's length. The girl across from him, however, was still all smiles and enthusiasm, much like Shen Yuelyang had been in her bolder days. Shen Yuelyang decided to head to the restroom first to freshen up. At the very least, she needed some fierce red lipstick to make sure she looked more imposing. But before she could take a few steps, she heard a familiar voice call out, "Shen Yuelyang." She had no choice but to change her plan, putting on a smile as she walked toward them. Shen Yuelyang arrived earlier than Lu Xingchen had expected. Seeing the strange smile on her face and the way she rested her hands on her abdomen, Lu Xingchen's eyebrow twitched. No one knew better than him how crazy this girl could be. Sure enough, as soon as Shen Yuelyang sat down, she completely ignored the girl in front of them and, with feigned coyness, said to him, "The baby's been very good today. Didn't cause any trouble." Maybe it's because he knew Daddy was coming to see him. Lu Xingchen choked a little, hastily grabbing a napkin to wipe his mouth, his gaze falling awkwardly on her flat stomach. Over the years, under the pretense of helping him fend off other women, Shen Yuelyang's self-proclaimed status had soared, from flower protector to girlfriend to fiancé, and now she had somehow upgraded herself to mother of his child. "We've never slept together. Where did this baby come from, Lu Xingchen leaned close to her ear, seemingly affectionate, but in reality gritting his teeth as he whispered. His usual gentlemanly demeanor was nowhere to be seen. Shen Yuelyang turned and planted a kiss on his cheek, mimicking his tone as she whispered back, "Well, why don't you sleep with me then?" Her voice was soft, with 3 parts provocation and 7 parts seduction. Even though Lu Xingchen had built up a strong immunity after being teased by her for years, he couldn't help feeling his blood rush, his ears heating up. He subtly pinched her waist, signaling her to stop. Shen Yuelyang just smiled mischievously, not giving any clear response. "And who might this be?" The girl across from them, Fong Ran, interrupted their intimate exchange, turning to look at Lu Xingchen as she asked. "I'm Lu Xingchen's fiancé, the mother of his child, his parents' future daughter-in-law, Shen Yuelyang. Together, we're the legendary Star Moon couple." Shen Yuelyang rattled off an unnecessarily long introduction, as if afraid the girl wouldn't understand. Lu Xingchen neither confirmed nor denied it. He merely gave Shen Yuelyang a helpless look. Only she could come up with such an over-the-top introduction. To Fong Ran, however, his silence was a sign of indulgence, a tacit agreement. Fong Ran silently clenched her fists. Seeing that neither of them recognized her, Fong Ran glanced at Shen Yuelyang once more, made an excuse, and left early. Lu Xingchen asked, "Weren't you supposed to work overtime until 9? Feeling guilty, Shen Yuelyang's eyes darted around before she began spouting nonsense. "I calculated that you were being harassed by a witch, so I came to save the day." She knew that with Lu Xingchen's careful and meticulous nature, if he ever did cheat, she would never catch him. There was no way he'd be careless enough to flaunt it in front of her. She just needed an excuse to ditch work. Lu Xingchen snorted, motioning for her to sit across from him. Casually, he said, "Fong Ran's just a new colleague." Shan Yueyang obediently followed his lead, not forgetting to throw Zhu Ning under the bus. Zhu Ning sent me the photos. I totally trust that you wouldn't be seduced by some witch. Lu Xingchen gave her a sideways glance. Oh, really? Shan Yueyang nodded vigorously. She'd been chasing him for years without success. Of course, she believed in him. After dinner, Shan Yueyang suddenly said with great emotion, Lu Xingchen, between my career and you, I would undoubtedly, without hesitation, choose you. Lu Xingchen raised an eyebrow. So, aren't you moved enough to offer yourself to me? Shan Yueyang teased, words as flirty as ever. But Lu Xingchen wasn't playing along, responding coolly, tell the truth. So, I may have quit my job to fend off some peach blossoms for you. Shan Yueyang expected Lu Xingchen to criticize her for her impulsiveness, but to her surprise, he said, over time, every day will kill you eventually. It's fine that you quit, but don't make a habit of it. Shan Yueyang was momentarily stunned. She suddenly remembered that a few days ago, she had complained to him about the long hours and wanting to rest. At the time, he had called her lazy, saying she couldn't handle hard work. But today, he'd conveniently given her an excuse to leave. Could it have been deliberate? And the way Zhu Ning's photo captured just the right angle of his smile, was that really not intentional? Let's go home. Lu Xingchen interrupted her thoughts. Shan Yueyang snapped out of it but didn't move. Lu Xingchen, I want to kiss you. No. Don't be so shy. Shan Yueyang. After quitting her job, Shan Yueyang spent a few days in pig-like bliss before finally feeling like herself again. The only downside was that Lu Xingchen still had to work and couldn't be with her. Though he complained, Lu Xingchen gave her his bank card the next day, saying the password was his birthday. At that moment, Shan Yueyang was still half asleep, dreaming about finally conquering Lu Xingchen. Startled awake, her brain lagged for a moment. Instead of being grateful, she snapped, "Why isn't the password my birthday?" Lu Xingchen shot her a look. "Take it or leave it." "I'll take it. I want you too." Shan Yueyang's voice was husky with sleep, her eyes dazed, giving her the lazy allure of a kitten. She kicked off the blankets as she spoke, trying to strike a seductive pose. But when she looked down at her baggy pajamas, she immediately lost steam, groaning as she burrowed back under the covers. "I need to buy sexy pajamas, lingerie, everything, until I bankrupt you." Lu Xingchen stifled a laugh, not wanting to provoke her. Clearing his throat, he asked, And then, Shan Yueyang drew out her words, sticking her head out from under the covers, dreaming aloud. "And then I'll keep you, haha. Keep dreaming. I'm off this weekend. We'll go home together." Shan Yueyang nodded and quickly scrambled to the edge of the bed, grabbing the hem of his shirt. Looking up at him with puppy eyes, she said, "How about a goodbye kiss, Lu Xingchen didn't say a word, glancing at his watch, then back at Shan Yueyang, remaining perfectly still. With his sharp features, tall frame, and impeccable suit, Lu Xingchen exuded masculinity and charm, a walking temptation. Shan Yueyang swallowed hard, inwardly vowing to cure him of his proud, aloof ways so that one day he'd be the one wagging his tail, begging for her affection. But for now, overcome by desire, she climbed onto him and kissed him, ignoring the smug grin tugging at the corners of his lips. Of course, she couldn't resist giving herself an out. They say if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. Lu Xingchen responded with another of his signature cool, dismissive hums. Shan Yueyang and Lu Xingchen were childhood friends. Lu Xingchen's mother, Su Ping, was an elementary school teacher. When Shan Yueyang's family moved to the area, she transferred into Su Ping's class. Shan Yueyang's father was busy with his business and had no relatives available to take care of her, so Su Ping would bring her home until her father came to pick her up in the evening. Even as a child, Shan Yueyang was sweet and charming. As soon as she arrived at the Lu family's home, she affectionately switched from calling Su Ping Teacher Su to Auntie Su and began calling Lu's father Uncle Lu. The couple adored her right away. Then she saw Lu Xingchen, who who was shorter than her at the time and naturally assumed he was younger. With excitement, she hugged him and kissed him on the cheek, declaring, "I'm Yuelyong Jiejie, and I'll take care of you from now on." Su Ping laughed and corrected her. "Yuelyong, our Xingchen is a year older than you. You should call him Gij." "Xingxing?" Shen Yuelyong asked, and after seeing Su Ping nod, she immediately switched to, "Xingxing Gij, I'm your Yuelyong Mimi." At that time, Lu Xingchen didn't like Shen Yuelyong at all. He disliked her for being taller, for calling him Xingxing Gij, and for constantly chattering and stealing his parents' attention. For a long time, he ignored her as much as he could. But Shen Yuelyong was anything but a cold, distant moon. She was more like a bright, radiant sun. She didn't care about his indifference and stuck to him like glue, always smiling and circling around him every day as if she never got angry or upset. As time passed, Lu Xingchen couldn't bring himself to dislike her anymore. Every day, she would beam at him like a flower, offering him her most treasured things. His once quiet life gradually became livelier, like other kids who always had friends around. The loneliness and sensitivity that had plagued him from being isolated due to his mother's position as a teacher slowly began to heal. He also started to notice that Shen Yuelyong, as a transfer student, didn't have many friends in class either. It dawned on him why she never got angry. She was afraid people wouldn't like her, just as he had once been. And so, their hearts gradually grew closer, though Lu Xingchen never expressed his feelings out loud. For years, his pride kept him from admitting his fondness for her. On weekends, naturally, they always went to the Lu family home first. As soon as they entered, Shen Yuelyong enthusiastically greeted, "Dad Lu, Mom Lu." She acted all cutesy, asking for hugs, which made the couple laugh joyfully. Lu Xingchen stood off to the side, looking like the odd one out, but he didn't mind. He enjoyed seeing his parents so happy. At some point, Shen Yuelyong had transitioned from calling them Uncle and Annie to Dad and Mom, and it was clear everyone liked it that way. "How adorable," Shen Yuelyong squealed. "Mom Lu, when did you get such a cute little Pomeranian?" "That's your Auntie Zhang's dog. She used to live next door, but moved away. She's back now and asked me to take care of it while she visits her daughter." Su Ping's voice called from the kitchen. "So cute." Shen Yuelyong squatted by the dog bed, playing with the Pomeranian, before turning to Lu Xingchen and saying, "I want one too." "No." Lu Xingchen immediately rejected the idea. Knowing her tendency to lose interest quickly, he figured he'd end up taking care of it, and he already had his hands full with her. Shen Yuelyong pouted and ran off to the kitchen to complain to his parents. Whatever his parents said, Lu Xingchen wasn't sure, but Shen Yuelyong came back from the kitchen looking cheerful. She didn't bring up getting a dog again, though her expression was a little odd. After lunch, Lu Xingchen's parents went for a nap, and Shen Yuelyong snuck into his room. "Guess what your mom just told me?" She flopped onto Lu Xingchen's bed, grinning like a mischievous fox. Lu Xingchen lay down beside her, closing his eyes to feign sleep. Indulging her, he asked, "What did she say?" Shen Yuelyong stifled a laugh, scooted closer, and patted Lu Xingchen's head like he was a puppy. "She said taking care of a dog is too much trouble. If I'm bored, I should just play with you. Do you think she's telling me to keep you as my pet Lu doggy?" Lu Xingchen was speechless. His own mother always set him up like this. He turned over and wrapped an arm around her. "Sleep. I'll take you home when you wake up." Shen Yuelyong didn't respond. Lu Xingchen assumed she didn't want to go home, so he opened his eyes to comfort her, only to find her hand resting on his collar. Caught red-handed, Shen Yuelyong's gaze was shamelessly heated, but her tone was completely nonchalant. "Sleeping's more comfortable without clothes. I'm only thinking of you." Lu Xingchen laughed in disbelief. "Thanks for your concern, but I prefer sleeping with my clothes on." Shen Yuelyong wasn't having it, pouting angrily. "Lu Xingchen, I have my dignity too. If you don't let me sleep, I'll just sleep by myself." Not wanting to risk her fiery temper, Lu Xingchen, amused but wary of her mood swings, let her nestle into his arms as they drifted off to sleep. In the haze of slumber, she faintly heard him say, Think carefully about what you did wrong. Once you figure it out, then come climb into my bed again." That evening, after having dinner at the Liu family's house, Shen Yuelyang reluctantly dragged herself back to her own home. When they arrived at her apartment complex, she refused to get out of the car. "I don't want to go back." Shen Yuelyang didn't even want to call it home because, in her heart, she didn't have a home. For as long as she could remember, she had moved from place to place, constantly switching schools. Her father, always busy with work, had left her with various relatives, each one after another. Just when she'd get used to one place, she'd have to leave again. No one knew that behind every smiling greeting, the little girl inside her was filled with unease, afraid that the people around her wouldn't like her, afraid they'd say she wasn't welcome. Even when she was allowed to stay, she never dared to throw tantrums or cry, never showed any dissatisfaction. Instead, she was careful, almost to the point of being overly accommodating. People always called her sensible, but that wasn't the praise she wanted. The only place she ever felt truly liked was at the Liu family's house. Dad Liu and Mom Liu showed her genuine affection, not just out of obligation or politeness because of family ties. Although Liu Xingqian didn't like her at first, he eventually told her, "You don't always have to smile at everyone. Some people just won't like you no matter what." That was the first time she had ever broken down and cried like a truly hurt child, burying her face in his arms. After that, she spent more time at the Liu household. Eventually, her father's business stabilized, but by then, he had remarried and had more children. The fatherly love Shen Yuelyang longed for had never been directed toward her. Liu Xingqian comforted her. "It's only for one night. After breakfast tomorrow, I'll come pick you up." Shen Yuelyang began to pout. "Then at least take a walk with me around the block. I ate too much earlier, and I need to walk it off before I go in." Liu Xingqian agreed, knowing she was just trying to stall. Though he didn't want her to go back either, it was still her home. However, the next day, he would deeply regret agreeing to this. As soon as Shen Yuelyang stepped out of the car, she jumped onto Liu Xingqian, wrapping her legs around his waist and lazily clinging to him. "This is what you call a walk?" Liu Xingqian asked, pretending to be stern. Shen Yuelyang wasn't afraid of him in the slightest. She hooked her arms around his neck, flashing an innocent expression. "Mr. Liu, I can't help it. Whenever I see you, my legs just stop working." Liu Xingqian sighed, supporting her weight with his hands and lowering his head to lightly bump her forehead. With a tone that was both helpless and affectionate, he said, "I must have owed you in a past life." Shen Yuelyang giggled mischievously, leaning in close to whisper in his ear, "Oh, you're in big trouble then. It seems you owe me a lot. Looks like the only way to pay it off is with your body. Mr. Liu, you don't like being in debt, do you? How about we settle this tonight?" She intentionally got even closer, her breath warm against his ear, sending tingles down his spine. But that wasn't enough for her. She nibbled on his earlobe, causing Liu Xingqian to freeze on the spot. After a moment of regaining control, he lightly smacked her on the butt to make her behave. Shen Yuelyang froze for a second, letting out a small ah before burying her head into his chest. "What's wrong?" Liu Xingqian asked, unsure why she reacted that way. He hadn't even used much force. After a moment of hesitation, Shen Yuelyang shyly mumbled, "Don't hit my butt anymore. I'm embarrassed." Liu Xingqian was left speechless, feeling completely thrown off by how she could switch so quickly between being a seductive temptress and an innocent little bunny. Shouldn't he be the one feeling embarrassed right now? The next morning, when Liu Xingqian called Shen Yuelyang, she didn't pick up. He assumed she was still sleeping. But when he arrived at her apartment and called again with no response, a sense of foreboding crept over him. When he reached her apartment and opened the door, he found Shen Yuelyang burning up with a high fever. Seeing her dazed father and indifferent stepmother, Liu Xingqian's anger boiled over. Kicking over a nearby chair, he growled, "I'm never letting Yuelyang come back here again. You two can just live your lives on your own." With that, he scooped Shen Yuelyang into his arms and stormed out, heading straight for the hospital. Only after the doctor had administered N4 did Lu Xingchen's heart finally settle. It had only been a few hours since he last saw her, yet she had managed to wear herself down to this point, lying there so weak. He realized then that he'd never feel comfortable unless she was always within his sight. Mimicking her usual teasing style, Lu Xingchen leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Get well soon, and I'll finally let you climb into my bed. This time, clothes off." "You better not go back on your word," came Shen Yuelyang's feeble yet determined response. Lu Xingchen stared at her, feigning suspicion. "You woke up at just the right moment, didn't you?" Biting her lip, Shen Yuelyang replied, "It's our special connection." Her flirtatious words slipped out naturally, and Lu Xingchen, certain she was truly fine, felt a wave of relief. He touched her forehead, finding it wasn't as hot anymore, and helped her sip some congee. "What happened? How did you end up with such a bad fever overnight?" Lu Xingchen asked. Shen Yuelyang pouted, wanting to say, "It's because you made me go back," but she didn't want him to feel guilty. So, she summed it up briefly. Last night, when she returned home, she knocked on the door for ages, but no one answered, even though she could clearly hear her stepmother talking inside. So, she called her father without mentioning that she was locked out, only asking when he'd be home. It turned out he arrived 3 hours later than he said he would. "You waited outside for 3 hours?" Lu Xingchen was torn between anger and concern. All right, I won't be that foolish again," Shen Yuelyang quickly admitted, before pouting playfully. "Are you scolding a sick person now?" "Lu Xingchen, I feel awful." Lu Xingchen shot her a stern look, kissing her forehead despite his words, and warned, "If you ever do something this dumb again, just wait and see how I'll deal with you." Tears welled up in Shen Yuelyang's eyes, and she reached out for a hug. Naturally, Shen Yuelyang ended up back at the Lu family home, where Dad Lu and Mom Lu gave Lu Xingchen a good scolding for not taking better care of her. They showered Shen Yuelyang with affection, showing genuine concern from the bottom of their hearts. Shen Yuelyang couldn't hold back her tears, clinging to Mom Lu and acting spoiled. Lu Xingchen still had work the next day, so of course, no one let him stick around. Dad Lu and Mom Lu only told him to be careful on his way out, while Shen Yuelyang just reminded him not to forget what he'd promised before shooing him away. Rubbing his nose awkwardly, Lu Xingchen promised to pick her up later and made his exit without protest. After Shen Yuelyang recovered from her illness, she couldn't wait for Lu Xingchen to come pick her up, so she took a cab back by herself. She wanted to surprise him, so she didn't tell him in advance. But after waiting until 8 p.m., Lu Xingchen finally came home, and he wasn't alone. He was with Fong Ran. From a surprise to a shock, Shen Yuelyang silently contemplated the situation as she watched the two of them. "Yuelyang, we didn't get a proper introduction last time," Fong Ran spoke first. "I'm Auntie Zhang's daughter. I used to live next door to Xingchen's family. My name was Chun Ran back then, but I changed my surname to Fong when my stepfather adopted me." Shen Yuelyang frowned, thinking it over for a moment before replying indifferently, "No memory of that." "Lu Xingchen, care to explain what's going on here?" Lu Xingchen opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Fong Ran jumped in. "As you can see, it's late, and here we are, just the two of us. What do you think it means?" Her tone turned sharp and provocative, abandoning the warm facade she had worn earlier. Since Shen Yuelyang clearly wasn't taking her seriously, Fong Ran had decided to drop the act and face her head-on. This was her one chance, and she needed to make it count. Shen Yuelyang snorted. "It's barely after 8 p.m., and you're calling it late? Did you come from ancient times or something? If I don't fight back, you think I'm just some naive little pushover? I've only been gone 3 days, not 3 months or 3 years. If Lu Xingchen were so easily seduced, I would have thrown him into the Pacific long ago." Although Shen Yuelyang usually came across as playful and carefree, when she got serious, there was a sharpness to her. Fong Ran had never seen this side of her before. The last time they met, Fong Ran had quickly sized her up and concluded that she was still the same childish girl who had been spoiled by Lu Xingchen. She had expected Shin Yuelyang to break down in tears, to ask, why, or to throw a tantrum and immediately turn on Lu Xingchen. What she hadn't anticipated was such a calm and composed response. It was at that moment Fong Rand understood where Lu Xingchen's confidence came from. But she wasn't ready to give up just yet. Composing herself, she responded, "Men always prefer new flings over old loves. No matter how deep or long-lasting the relationship, it can never compare to the thrill of a passionate encounter." Shan Yuelyang said nothing, turning around and heading into the bedroom. Fong Ran felt a surge of triumph until she saw Shan Yuelyang return with a piece of paper and a bank card. "This is Lu Xingchen's health report from last month. He's perfectly healthy. This is his bank card. It's fully stocked. I just came back from the Lu family's house today. Both Dad Lu and Mom Lu are doing great. I was at my father's house last weekend, and while I wasn't there long, I can confirm my dad isn't in any financial trouble. There's no crisis, no debt for Lu Xingchen to repay on his behalf. Fong Ran, there's no illness, no debt, no family troubles. All the reasons you might think he'd leave me for simply don't exist. He's not going to abandon me." Fong Ran bit her lip, speechless. She had counted on stirring up jealousy and insecurity in Shin Yuelyang, banking on her reacting like any woman would when they saw their man with another woman. What she hadn't accounted for was the unwavering trust and confidence Shin Yuelyang had in Lu Xingchen and their relationship. She never doubted him. Their bond was unshakable. Fong Ran wasn't ready to back down. She had liked Lu Xingchen since she was a child, always thinking that being so close would give her the upper hand. Then Shen Yuelyang had swooped in out of nowhere and stolen him away. She couldn't help but wonder, if she had been braver, more proactive, and claimed a place in Lu Xingchen's heart earlier, would he have fallen for her instead? Would he have given her all the love he now gave to Shin Yuelyang? Lu Xingchen, believing that Fong Ran had finally seen the truth, scoffed and started to move past her toward Shin Yuelyang. But just then, Fong Ran grabbed his arm. Seeing Lu Xingchen not immediately push her away, Shin Yuelyang's eyes filled with tears, and she shouted at him, "Lu Xingchen, are you not going to push her away?" Fong Ran's eyes lit up. What had initially been a reflexive action suddenly seemed like her best chance. She might be able to rationally debate whether or not Lu Xingchen had cheated, but there was no way Shin Yuelyang could stand by and watch him have any physical contact with another woman right in front of her. Emboldened, Fong Ran made another move to embrace him, but Lu Xingchen abruptly shoved her aside, causing her to fall to the ground. Without sparing her a glance, Lu Xingchen immediately picked up Shin Yuelyang and her favorite princess lift. "Lu Xingchen, you're mine. If someone else even touches you, I feel like they're stealing from me," Shin Yuelyang said in a tearful voice, like a child upset over a beloved toy being taken away. Lu Xingchen kissed her gently. "What's yours will always be yours. No one else can touch me. Lu Xingchen will always belong to Shen Yuelyang alone." Fong Ran sat on the floor, staring at them, knowing she had lost completely. Lu Xingchen's words were meant for Shin Yuelyang, but they were also aimed at her, cutting off all hope, without mercy. It turned out that Lu Xingchen had the same idea as Shin Yuelyang. He knew that today was her last for treatment, so he planned to surprise her by picking her up. But after work, Fong Ran had blocked his path, revealing that she was actually Chin Ran, the girl who used to live next door to him. She overheard him telling a colleague he was going to pick up Shin Yuelyang and asked if she and her mother, Aunt Zhang, could get a ride since it was on the way. Lu Xingchen agreed. During the drive, Fong Ran kept reminiscing about their childhood, how they had been classmates and neighbors, subtly hinting that they were meant to be. Noticing that Aunt Zhang seemed to be encouraging the idea as well, Lu Xingchen immediately clarified his relationship with Shin Yuelyang, even mentioning their upcoming wedding. Only then did the car grow quiet. However, when he didn't find Shin Yuelyang and was preparing to head back, Fong Ran suddenly stepped in front of his car. If he hadn't slammed on the brakes, she would have ended up in the hospital. Standing in front of the car, she declared that Shen Yuelyang didn't deserve him and confessed her feelings for him. Lu Xingchen ignored her, but she persisted. I dare you to make a bet with me. If I show up with you in front of Shin Yuelyang, she'll cry, panic, and be completely helpless. A woman like that. She's not as weak as you think. Lu Xingchen cut her off sharply. You don't know anything about Shin Yuelyang. Whether or not she's good enough for me is not for you to decide. Then bet with me. If I lose, I'll leave her alone. I won't bother Shin Yuelyang again, and I won't let my mom say anything to your mother, either. Lu Xingchen didn't want to keep arguing with her and definitely didn't want to drag his mother or Shin Yuelyang into this mess, so he agreed. Fong ran. Lu Xingchen called her name firmly. If you like me for my looks, my skills, or anything else on the outside or inside, you'll find someone better than me out there. But if it's my feelings for Shin Yuelyang that you admire, then remember this. It's only because it's her. If it were anyone else, I wouldn't be who I am now. So stop your nonsense and don't show up around us again. Tomorrow, after you get to work, you have two choices. Either submit your resignation, or you'll receive a termination letter. The choice is yours. Fong Ran couldn't believe what she was hearing.
Why?
What have I done wrong at work? Nothing. I just don't like you. Is that not reason enough? Lu Xingchen interrupted coldly. You think I'm obligated to remain professional, impartial, and separate my personal feelings? Fong Ran, you have no idea what kind of person I really am or the lengths I'll go to. This is the price you'll have to pay. With that, he didn't spare her another glance, heading straight back home with Shin Yuelyang in his arms. Fong Ran was no longer a concern for them. As soon as they entered the house, Shin Yuelyang slipped out of Lu Xingchen's arms and curled up silently on the sofa. Lu Xingchen couldn't help but chuckle to himself. He had really upset her today. Yuelyang, it's time for bed, Lu Xingchen called out. I'm not going to bed. The moon doesn't sleep. It only comes alive at night. Shin Yuelyang snapped, clearly still fuming. Lu Xingchen rubbed his nose awkwardly, thinking for a moment before asking, Don't you want to know why I've never let you conquer me all these years? I don't care. Say it if you want. Don't if you don't. After being met with a cold shoulder, Lu Xingchen dropped his pride and continued, Shin Yuelyang, do you remember the first time you kissed me? You were reading a novel, and I was doing homework. You suddenly came over and asked, Lu Xingchen, have you ever kissed anyone? When I shook my head, you kissed me. That was our first kiss. I was so excited I couldn't sleep that night, but when I saw you the next day, you acted like nothing happened. You even told me about some cute guy you saw. Shin Yuelyang, in all these years, nothing you've liked has lasted more than 3 months. At the shortest, you'd forget all about it the next day. That's nonsense. I've been chasing you for years. Did I ever lose interest in you or forget about you? Shin Yuelyang finally spoke up, unwilling to let him have the upper hand. If Lu Xingchen kept talking like this, she'd be the one at fault. You haven't lost me, and you haven't forgotten me, Lu Xingchen nodded. But haven't you also asked me to get other guys' phone numbers for you? Haven't you excitedly told me about some guy you thought was handsome? Haven't you gone to confess to others behind my back? I admit to the first two, but I never confessed to anyone else. That time was for Zhu Ning. Shin Yuelyang owned up, then quickly fired back. What about you? You've never chased me. Our relationship has always been vague, and you've let so many girls fawn over you every day. Lu Xingchen shook his head. Shin Yuelyang, it's not like I asked them to surround me, but let me tell you this. I'm never going to chase you. What do you mean? Shin Yuelyang asked, confused. Yuelyang, Lu Xingchen began, pulling her into an embrace and resting his head on her shoulder. You like to cause trouble, so I let you. You like to play, so I let you play. But no matter how much you mess around, you always come back to me in the end. I'm afraid that if I chase you first, you'll get bored. I'm afraid that if you succeed in conquering me, you'll lose your goal and run off with someone else. I have to keep you on your toes, so you're always thinking about me, like a cat scratching at your heart. I remember clearly, the first time you thought about pouncing on me was during that summer break in college, when we went swimming. You got naughty thoughts about me then. The second time was after a dorm room chat where you and your roommates were discussing your boyfriend's physiques. The next day, you wouldn't stop trying to undress me. The third time was after graduation when you felt embarrassed that you hadn't lost your virginity yet. And recently, you've been chasing me hot and heavy because of that TV show Princess Agents and the Xinhua couple. None of these reasons were serious. They were all childlike whims, just you messing around. Shen Yueyang thought about it and realized there was some truth to what he said. But I'm only trying to conquer you because I like you. Why don't I go after anyone else? My feelings for you are real and deep, more precious than gold, as vast as the sea. Lu Xingchen snorted. Back when you first asked me out, you said you were both smart and lazy, and you weren't going to be like a foolish rabbit who eats the grass right outside its burrow. Wait, are you here to settle the score with me? Shen Yueyang raised her voice, trying to make a show of bravado. I am. Lu Xingchen nodded. Just as Shen Yueyang was about to get angry, he added, after tallying everything up, it's clear you've had impure motives toward me this whole time. You owe me, so you can repay me with your body. I agree. Lu Xingchen carried Shen Yueyang into the bedroom, but her confidence faltered. Shen Yueyang, are you trying to run away at the last minute? Lu Xingchen flipped her over, pinning her hands to the bed. And no, it's not that. Shen Yueyang's eyes darted around nervously. I used to want to conquer you, because I thought that if we made things official, I could tell your mom and secure my position. Otherwise, I was afraid she would always think of me as a daughter, never as a daughter-in-law. Shouldn't we take it slow? Lu Xingchen chuckled. My mom has known how I feel about you for a long time. I asked her not to make it obvious, so you wouldn't feel pressured. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Shen Yueyang fumed, realizing she had spent all this time worrying for nothing. So, do you have any other concerns? Speak now. It's getting late, and we should get some sleep. Lu Xingchen looked down at her, his expression leaving no room for negotiation. Shen Yueyang blinked and said nothing. In the past, whenever she teased Lu Xingchen, he'd remain unmoved, almost breaking her pride. But now that he was taking the lead, she found herself feeling timid. Condoms. Yes, we don't have any condoms. Shen Yueyang praised herself for her quick thinking. Lu Xingchen glanced at her, then let go of her hands and leaned over to open the drawer in the bedside table. I've always been prepared. I knew you were all talk, only daring to tease me without taking any real action. And you blame me? The first time I snuck into your room, you threw me out without mercy. Then you even locked your door like I was some kind of thief. Shen Yueyang huffed, recalling her frustrations. Lu Xingchen burst out laughing and kissed her pouting lips. I only locked it for the first 2 days. After that, I stopped. But who knew you'd never come back? Just as Shen Yueyang was about to mock him for being secretly smitten, Lu Xingchen's phone rang. Who's calling you this late? Could it be another girl, Li Ran, Zhang Ran? Shen Yueyang asked, her tone dripping with jealousy. Lu Xingchen simply handed her the phone, revealing that it was his mom calling. Hey, Mom. As he took the call, Shen Yueyang signaled him to let her go, but then she heard him say, Yueyang is sleeping. Shen Yueyang immediately quieted down, worried he might say something to his mom that would embarrass her. However, Lu Xingchen smoothly lied, pretending she was already asleep. Seeing him lie so easily, Shen Yueyang decided to have a little fun. She gave him a sweet smile before slipping her hand under his shirt, gently caressing his waist. Even though her touch lacked any particular technique, it was enough to ignite a fire inside Lu Xingchen. She had no idea how much she was affecting him, and when she pressed her body against his, thinking she was being playful, her every movement only added fuel to the flames. What she saw as innocent teasing was, to Lu Xingchen, pure seduction. Mom, my throat's feeling a bit sore. I'll talk to you later, Lu Xingchen quickly said, hanging up the phone. And indeed, his throat did feel tight, his body burning with desire. By the time Shen Yueyang realized she might have pushed things too far, it was already too late. A man who has been holding back for so long is not going to stop when given the chance to express his love. Lu Xingchen had no intention of playing the role of a saint. Tonight, he was very much human and he was going to savor every moment with the woman he loved. "Say something to me," Shen Yuelyang mumbled, dazed from his kisses, but still holding onto a grudge. "What do you want me to say?" Lu Xingchen's voice was husky. "Say that from now on, the star will revolve around the moon." Shen Yuelyang had been teased for years about how it was unnatural for the moon to chase after the star, and now she wanted to set the record straight. "From now on, the star will revolve around the moon," Lu Xingchen said without hesitation. "Aren't you going to play hard to get? Didn't you always refuse to admit it before?" Lu Xingchen thought to himself, "You've underestimated a man's shamelessness." Then, without another word, he kissed her even more passionately. When Shen Yuelyang finally cried out in pain later that night, she quietly consoled herself, "This is all my fault. What else can I do but enjoy this shameless, blissful love?"